I really think that there is one clear reason why startups fail, and that is that the founder tries to do everything by himself.
They create people who become their favorites.
Let's say Shah Rukh Khan is acting in a Bollywood movie, and what if he says that, you know what, I'm going to do the acting, but I'll also do the choreography, I'll also do the cinematography, I'll also do, the playback singing for you, I'll also serve the tea. What do you think will happen to that kind of a movie?
But in an organization, he was expected to do everything.
We have all played snakes and ladders as kids. The glee of rolling the dice, suddenly seeing a ladder in front of us, or dreading a snake is far too real to be believed. In a startup founder's journey, we have observed that the game, the landscape, is no different than a snakes and ladders board. And as you know, that is the theme for our show. This is how a conventional snakes and ladders board looks like. आज का हमारा टॉपिक है स्टार्टअप मॉर्टैलिटी और इस टॉपिक पे जितनी बात करें कम है. In fact, we realized we may not be able to pack all of this in one single episode, and hence are going to break this episode into two parts. So, welcome to part one of the Snakes and Ladders show with the theme Startup Mortality. The reason the analogy of the snakes and ladders applies to startup founders is because the snakes could be lurking anywhere and ladders could miraculously manifest or could be made to manifest. आप जो ये बोर्ड देख रहे हैं वो पूरा blank है. No, don't get me wrong. But the real story here is that for a startup founder, the board is usually empty. ऐसे नहीं कि snakes और ladders सब visible होते हैं. In fact, the circumstance, the situation that presents itself really, acts as a surprise. और जब वो स्टार्टअप फाउंडर अपने तरीके से, सपोर्ट से, गाइडेंस से वो सिचुएशन को नेविगेट करता है, तब कहीं पता चलता है कि वो सिचुएशन स्नेक थी या लैडर. द बेस्ट पार्ट इज मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम द स्नेक्स कैन बी इरेज्ड एंड द लैडर्स कैन बी ड्रॉन डिपेंडिंग ऑन व्हाट काइंड ऑफ रिस्पॉन्स द स्टार्टअप हैज बीन एबल टू प्रोवाइड टू दैट पर्टिकुलर सिचुएशन. और इस बार हम ऐसे गेस्ट बुलाने वाले हैं जो बताएंगे कि उनके जर्नी में अलग अलग स्टार्टअप फाउंडर्स ने कैसे अलग सिचुएशंस के साथ नेविगेट किया और कन्वर्टेड सम ऑफ द सिचुएशंस इनटू ईदर अ लैडर दैट डिडंट एग्जिस्ट और परहैप्स डेफ्टली अवॉइडेड अ स्नेक दैट वाज लर्किंग बिहाइंड द कॉर्नर्स. अभी आप देखेंगे यहाँ पे एक लिस्ट जो बाय नो स्ट्रेच ऑफ इमेजिनेशन इज द कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव लिस्ट, बट इट इज जस्ट टू जॉग योर ब्रेन in terms of what are some of those points that perhaps you have factored in your journey or you are yet to factor. Let's have a look. In fact, आपको याद होगा हमने पहले एपिसोड में भी कहा था कि अगर आपके पास ऐसे क्वेश्चंस है तो आप हमको भेज सकते हैं in our new segment that we have introduced, which is called Roll the Dice. Have a look. As founders, you have watched a couple of episodes of the Snakes and Ladders, but I'm sure there must be a thought crossing your mind about a snake lurking out there or some ladder you would love to see getting manifested. If you have some such question, you could now send your question to us via a small video recording, not more than 45 seconds, which you could just put on a Google Drive and send to us. And we will try and see if we can get you the answer. We'll also try and see if we can get an investor or an expert to answer that question for you and feature your question in the next episode. Just one suggestion. Please don't make impossible demands like, you know what, I want to speak to Mr. Elon Musk. Or can you please get me Mr. Ratan Tata? Or Vijay Shekhar Sharma Hazir ho. Ain't happening. But if your questions are more like, we have just embarked, finished the MVP, not sure whether we should go down the B2B route or the B2C route, or we are a food tech or an ed tech startup and we aren't able to get investor conversations or investor meetings. What do you think we should do differently? Or maybe we are a pre-series A startup or a series A startup And different investors are telling us different things about what we should be doing. What do you think is the way out? Those kind of questions, bring them on. But remember one thing, the answer to every question you have not asked is always a no. So question bhej do, just send it across in our section called Roll the Dice. As they say in that famous Hindi song, Dav laga le bhai, dav laga le. वेलकम बैक। अब नज़र डालिए कुछ ऐसे पॉइंट्स पे जो शायद दिखने में तो इनोसेंट है लेकिन शायद बहुत खतरनाक भी हो सकते हैं और शायद लैडर्स भी बन सकते हैं। हमने ऐसे इन्वेस्टर्स एक्सपर्ट्स को बुलाया है यहाँ पे ताकि वो बात कर सके अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस, अपने एनेक्डोट्स जो शायद आपको आपके ज़िंदगी में, आपके स्टार्टअप लाइफ में, बीट एज अ फाउंडर, बीट एज एन इन्वेस्टर, काम आ सके। It gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Suraj Juneja, a serial entrepreneur, an investor, a venture builder, who's the founder and chief venture builder of Free Flow Ventures. Our next guest is Rishi Kappal, a startup evangelist who has created not one, but two entrepreneurship innovation centers. He has been a 5 times author. He's the lead alumni of Stanford and the ex-CEO of Sony, Qualcomm, and Castrol. My first question is for Suraj. Hi, Suraj. Welcome to the Snakes and Ladders show.
Hi, Sachin. Thank you for having me here.
What, in your experience as a serial entrepreneur, investor, and venture builder, is a big killer, a big snake that you would like to talk about?
Thank you so much. I think the biggest snake that I can think of, and something which I propagate on a daily basis, is not one element of a startup journey or a business or a venture. I think at the very basic level, I think the one thing that most people have heard is that 92% startups fail. Now you must have heard that a lot of jargons, a lot of shows, a lot of events are giving these sessions online. But the problem is that nobody really mentions why do these startups fail, or nobody tries to delve into the fact that why do these startups fail. Everybody loves to throw statistics. I really think that there is one clear reason why startups fail, and that is that the founder tries to do everything by himself. So typically, what I try and do is that I compare this to a movie. Let's say Shah Rukh Khan is acting in a Bollywood movie, and what if he says that I'm going to do the acting, but I'll also do the choreography, I'll also do the cinematography, I'll also do the playback singing for you, I'll also serve the tea. What do you think will happen to that kind of a movie? Definitely it would tank. So the same thing actually applies to founders and to startups as well. If a founder tries to do everything by himself, it's impossible that the startup can take off. Though, contrary to what people say, generally people say, eat, breathe, sleep your startup, do whatever it takes. I think that's the worst advice that a startup founder can get. Never do that. All of us are great at one thing. We are best at one thing. We love to do one thing. We are either left-brained or right-brained. So that's my philosophy. The biggest snake is that a startup founder should focus on his core strength, what he's great at, and definitely bring in different members or different employees or different co-founders, whatever it takes, into his company so that everybody is great at what they do. Together, the company then becomes an amazing company and it grows. So the first snake, as you say, is definitely this one for me.
Awesome. Considering that each founder goes through different experiences, is there any other pitfall or snake to be avoided by founders that you would like to share?
So the snake number 2, it pertains, again, I'm trying to connect the dots with my snake number 1. It pertains to finding a co-founder, the right co-founder. Too early in the business of just when a founder starts a particular business or tries to launch a product, he's totally focused on getting that to market, totally focused on the product, totally focused on, how to bring this out to the market, sales, numbers, and so on and so forth. But if you don't have the right co-founder, this thing will not last very long. And I'll tell you why. I touched upon a bit in the last segment that I spoke about. But like I said, people are either right-brained or left-brained. And in the many sessions that I've gone to so many colleges in India, If you go to an MBA college, you'll see that if you ask them the business model, they'll give you a fantastic business model, a fantastic presentation, the logo, the ad will also be ready. But if you ask them where's the product, they won't be very sure about it. You go to an engineering college, they'll show you the product, they'll show you the features, they'll be brilliant, either apps or robotics, fancy little cars being made. But you ask them, how are you going to sell it? They have no idea about the business plan. This is the typical scenario of every startup founder also. If you go to an engineer and you expect him to start doing sales, or if he starts doing sales and marketing himself, that won't be his best bet at all. Similarly, if you go to somebody who's an MBA or a sales or marketing expert and you tell them to handle a tech team, they won't even know how to retain those people. They won't even know how to quantify the work that the tech team has done. They won't know how to hire the next tech team people. But problem is that most people try and do this. A lot of founders, even though that's not their core strength, they try and do that. So I think the second thing is to find a great co-founder or co-founders, and that lays the foundation to a successful startup, so that everybody is of a complementary skill set.
Awesome. I would now like to turn to Rishi Kappal. Hi, Rishi. Welcome to the Snakes and Ladders show.
Thank you so much, Sachin. It is always such a pleasure to interact with you. And I hope we do that more often, actually.
Rishi, in your experience, what would be that most common snake that founders usually succumb to or ignore?
Okay. So the first snake which I've observed is many a times that a founder is attempting to do every function on his own or her own, but they don't realize that they lack core competence in certain areas when they are working on their venture or their founder. So for example, we know that we met this company called aha.com, which is started by a former monk. And in terms of building the organization, the gentleman's core competence was not technology or commercials or finance. The gentleman's core competency was understanding the philosophy of mindfulness and emotional resilience. But in an organization, he was expected to do everything, because the venture can only succeed if you do everything right, from developing the technology platform to monetizing it. But it became a long journey as a snake for the individual to first realize that he cannot do everything on himself, and there have to be people who have to be brought in who have specific competences in that specific area. And now, since he brought a technologist and the founder himself was not a technologist, he could not evaluate the capability of the individual. So it became more like a spray and pray kind of a situation, where he was onboarding technologists and trying to figure out whether the person can do the job or not. So that probably made the individual lose around 1.5, 2 years of activity and work. And eventually the company today has landed up running around $60,000 per month of billing. But in the last 2.5 years, that lack of core competencies and not realizing it became a very, very critical snake for the organization.
Very interesting. What else have you observed as a snake that most founders are absolutely oblivious to?
So one part of it is that many founders which I've come across realize very late that organization development and culture development is very critical, right from the early stages of a venture. And initially they take pleasure in the fact that there is chaos in the organization, everybody's doing everything and things are crazy. But what happens in that situation, and this I've observed in the organizations I've dealt with, that they create people who become their favorites. So there is a technical term called creating snowflakes. So what happens is that people who become more friendly and become the favorite of the founders at an early stage, because the culture is not set and the organization development is not in place, they basically try to believe that we are indispensable, and they try to, subtly and subconsciously start to take decisions which even the founder would not like it. So that is called creating snowflakes. And in that whole race of not having a proper organization culture, they also do not really acknowledge the high performers, and they create something called as imposters. So on one side there are snowflakes, on the other side are imposters who start to believe that my performance and my resilience and my productivity for the organization basically does not mean anything. That increases retention. So I've seen a very serious snake in startups, where they realize very late how human resource management or organization development and culture can have an impact on the organization, and it has actually hampered their growth.
Very intriguing perspective for sure. This is getting interesting. What else comes to your mind as a snake that founders tend to ignore?
I have realized is that a few companies which I came across had a product market fit for global markets, but they did not realize it. So they were so concentrated to become a regional player where they did not realize that the global opportunity might actually benefit them more than the regional opportunity. And this was happening because they were listening to too many mentors. So a startup founder cannot outsource their mind. So somebody else cannot think on their behalf. So I told these startup founders that you should listen to everyone, but you should be able to triangulate the right way for the organization to move forward. So they have opportunities to go global, but they don't take it because they're getting over mentored, and somebody is not really making them believe that the opportunity exists. So other than the first one we spoke, the other two which I could think of was not believing in OD and culture development to be done early in the company. And second is not realizing that the opportunities are available elsewhere, but the over mentoring is basically stopping them from taking a decision.
Coming to Suraj, we have seen a star team is certainly one of the big ladders a founder can have. And it doesn't have to be on the payrolls. It could be an incubator, an accelerator, or a venture studio that stands by you like a rock. Would you like to share a ladder that some of the founders you have worked with were able to leverage with your help and guidance?
Okay, so when I was talking about finding the right co-founder or a collaborative approach, so one of the things that we do is we have a venture studio, and we help founders whom we think that we can partner with as a company, as an organization. We come in as a co-founder. So I will give you one example of a particular founder who made a great prototype. This founder is from Jaipur, made a brilliant product, and he called me to Jaipur to test the product, to see if I want to fund it and stuff like that. I did see the product. I loved the product. My team thought that there's a great market in it, and I thought the phenomenal things could be done with the product. But when I asked the founder that how are you going to market it, his first response is, "Sir, हम इसको India Mart में डाल देंगे." So it was a clear indication that this the marketing part of where this company can go, where the product can go, was not his cup of tea. His cup of tea was creating great product. So when we offered him that let's come in as partners, we'll take care of all your networks, your marketing, taking you to places. You only focus on creating the best product. That typically became the ladder for this founder, and I think that is something which most founders should look in for. It's again, I'm trying to connect the dots from my previous segment of what I was telling you about. When a founder focuses on his product, what happens is the journey of the product development also becomes shorter because he can only stick to that and not get into other dimensions. And thanks to that, what has happened in about 1 year to 1.2 years, now we have 3 models which are market ready, and he is successfully now selling it even all over the country and also getting export inquiries. On the contrary, if he would have stuck to trying marketing himself, maybe that was not possible. So a collaborative approach is one of the ladders which I think founders should look at. Not many venture studios are there in the country. Sadly, there are about 4 or 5 of them which are successfully doing business. But even if a startup or a founder does not attach themselves to a venture studio, the same collaborative approach can be done with various other stakeholders. Other people who are doing work in your company could be your co-founders, could be your employees, could be other companies that you have given that work to. But you must have a collaborative approach and not try to do everything yourself. That could be one of the most fantastic ladders for any founder.
That was awesome. This is proving to be an extremely insightful conversation, as you must have seen. As shared earlier, it's going to be extremely difficult to pack all of that in one single episode, and hence we created 2 parts. This brings us to the end of part 1 of the episode of Startup Mortality, but we are going to have a look at part 2, where we hear some of these investors, these founders, these experts talk about even vexing, even more intriguing situations that some of the founders faced and navigated successfully. So over to you, and let's watch part 2 very soon. Thank you. Keep watching the show and have a great day ahead.